I believe another magistrate you appeared before, it was this McMaster John Macaulay,
Yes.
who sat, I understand, at the Special Federal Magistrates Court, and you appeared before him, I know, a number of times, but I'm particularly interested in the fact that you appeared before him in a lengthy committal proceeding against a group of businessmen for conspiracy to defraud the Commonwealth Bank by what is known as kite flying. Can you tell us a bit about this?
Yes, certainly. There was a leader of the Jewish community, I don't know that I ought to use names, from the eastern suburbs, had a number of companies, and they banked with the ANZ Bank down in the Haymarket area. They got very favourable treatment by the manager of the branch of the ANZ Bank, and this leader set up a number of different companies, all with minimal capital. My client was a perfectly ordinary electrician. He'd come out from Hungary. He hadn't been here very long. He spoke very basic English, but he was a good electrician. I used him quite a bit afterwards. He was taken up by the chief conspirator and formed into a company, and that was the electricals. They had this electrical company, and they had lots of other little companies like this, all with an individual who had no experience whatsoever. Lots of them migrants. Well, the bank manager of the ANZ Bank got sick, so a replacement manager had to come in for a temporary time, and he observed things were going wrong. So he called the conspirator in and put the hard word on him and said, right, I give you 1 month to clear your indebtedness of all your companies. And the conspirator said, well, how am I going to do that? He said, I don't mind, but if you don't do it, you're finished. So, by the way, let me pause and say it's not a bad rule that if you as a bank manager or as any other form of financial manager are going to fiddle the books, you never want to take a holiday or get sick, because that's when things will go wrong. But that's only part of it. So the chief conspirator went round the corner, still in the Haymarket, to the Commonwealth Bank and changed all his business to there, and lasted for 2 years. Now, flying a kite it doesn't work any longer, by the way, because there's too much done on the internet. In those days, you'd have a company in Perth and a company in New South Wales. The Perth company would make a cheque out to New South Wales. It would be banked into the New South Wales account. It would appear as a credit. You could then draw on that, and provided, without it being cleared, and provided you had these cheques coming regularly enough so that a new one arrived before the last one had to be cleared, you were all right. Well, unfortunately for this mob, there was a postal strike, and that completely ruined the system. It all blew up, and they were all charged. The chief conspirator got some time, 3 years, I think, he served. I saw him at a cocktail party shortly after the 3 years was up. He didn't recognise me, but he might have recognised me. But he wasn't. He was talking to my wife's father, and explained that he'd just been on holidays for the last 3 years. His son, who was one of the other directors, was given a suspended sentence. The accountant, I think, was fined probably. We refused to take any part of it, and they didn't proceed against my client or the other fella in a similar situation to my client. But Mr. Macaulay SM conducted a very careful and committal proceeding. When the matter got to the district court, all this was organised between the judge, who didn't want to have a long case, and the senior counsel for the Crown, who subsequently became a Chief Judge of the Common Law Division. All this was organised between them and the chief conspirator, and we wouldn't take any part of it, I say, so they discontinued against us.
And I believe that when your client sought your advice as to an action for malicious prosecution, you gave him a very interesting piece of advice.
Well, a piece of advice that I'd been told by my father. When Daniel got out of the lion's den, he did not go back for his hat.
And I hope the client saw the sense of that.
He did. He certainly did.